Welcome to the CAL-FFL Newsroom. My name is Craig DeLuz, your host, and we're going to bring you a quick legislative update on Assembly Bill 1964. Now, this is Assemblyman Roger Dickinson's bill, which addresses the single-shot exemption to California's unsafe handgun roster. Now, I know you already know that there are tons of issues with the bill, and we'll talk a little bit about those later. But before we do, I want to give you an opportunity to hear from Assemblyman Dickinson about why he introduced this bill.
Existing law provides that what's defined as an unsafe handgun may be manufactured or sold in California by a licensed dealer, and requires that the Department of Justice prepare and maintain a roster of handguns which are determined to be safe. Unsafe handguns are defined in law as handguns that do not have requisite safety devices, do not meet specified firing tests, or do not meet a drop safety test, and therefore do not appear on the DOJ safe handgun roster.
Whoa, hold it right there. Let me tell you something that the Assemblyman did not tell you in his opening statement. There are a number of firearms that are not on the roster, not because they failed a test, but because the manufacturer refused to pay the $200 annual fee that's required in order for the firearm to stay on the list. That's right, they didn't test unsafe, they just didn't pay the annual fee. So does that really make them unsafe? But I digress. Let's get back to the Assemblyman's opening statement.
People are ordering a handgun not on the safe handgun roster and instructing the dealer to convert that unsafe handgun into a single-shot weapon. Then they take delivery. After delivery, they ask the dealer or they themselves reconvert the weapon to be one that is otherwise unsafe.
So in essence, what the Assemblyman is stating is that Californians are purchasing firearms that are considered safe and in common use in 49 other states. They're having them modified in order to fit California's safe handgun roster law. And because they still consider these firearms to be unsafe, we've got to put an end to the practice. Really? Even though these firearms are considered safe in 49 other states and are in common use, there's got to be a problem with this. Listen in as our legislative advocate Sean Doherty explains what that problem is.
The author indicates that this is a gun that is in common use. This practice is in common use. When in 2008, the United States Supreme Court in the District of Columbia v. Heller ruled that any handgun, or a firearm for that matter, that is in common use cannot be banned because it is unconstitutional, a violation of the Second Amendment.
Now, Sean goes on to point out that this bill doesn't just address the issue of those firearms that are temporarily modified, but it goes on further to ban those firearms that are permanently modified to fit California's safe handgun roster law.
In this bill, it calls for any gun that has been permanently altered to be a single-shot gun in this manner that used to be a semi-automatic to now be banned. If it's permanently altered so that it can only be a single shot, where is the inherent problem to the firearm at that point? Now what we're talking about is what the firearm used to be, i.e. a semi-automatic.
Let's just be honest about what AB 1964 is really about. It's about further expanding the ban on new handguns in the state of California. When the roster was first created, it was sold to Californians with the idea that it would actually make handguns safer. They would be required to go through numerous safety tests, including a drop test. But then with additional requirements such as the chamber load indicator and micro-stamping, manufacturers finally had enough. They basically said, why should we create a firearm that is going to be too expensive to sell and no one is going to buy? This created, in essence, a ban on all new firearms in the state of California. And that's the basis for a number of lawsuits which may see the safe handgun roster go by the wayside.
Pena v. Lindley is challenging the constitutionality of the roster. This bill, should you pass it and the legislature ultimately pass it and the governor sign it, will simply reinforce that lawsuit and make the eventual overturning of the roster that much easier.
Well, despite its many flaws, AB 1964 passed the Assembly Public Safety Committee on a partisan vote. Next stop, Assembly Appropriations. So it's not too late for you to make sure that your voice is heard. We want to encourage you to go online to demandrights.org. That's demandrights.org. And make sure you let the members of the California State Assembly know that they need to oppose AB 1964. And encourage your friends, neighbors, and family to do the same. I'm Craig DeLuz here in the CAL-FFL newsroom. We look forward to speaking again with you soon.